Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We've got a ton going on in the world of the NBA. We also have March Madness starting up. That's also exciting. Tons of basketball on to watch. That's the bottom line. The playoff race heating up in the NBA. March Madness going on. This is a great time of year for basketball. Speaking of March Madness, I actually do have a bracket challenge that I'm hosting. I'll put a link in the description down below. Free to enter and cash prizes to the top 3 finishers. So if you want to come join, again, free to enter, be a lot of fun, very quick, very easy. So I'll put the link in the description down below if anybody wants to join that. Joining me as always is Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. You can find me at Trevor_Lane over on the Twitter machine. Keith, how are you doing? Both of us are deep into the spring break territory here with our children.
Yeah, it's a little different week for both of us. We both are having to do some extra dadding right now,
Yep.
but it's not the end of the world. It's funny because I feel like I replaced the drop off and pickup process just with 25 other things that I need to do now throughout the course of the day. So I'll let everybody know by the time Friday rolls around which I prefer, which one I like better. But everything is good. We got the tournament kicking off. Kind of tonight, the first 4 games on Tuesday and Wednesday. I still think the tournament starts in full on Thursday. So super excited for that. That should be a lot of fun. And this is a great time for basketball fans. And it's the tournament always hits at a point where NBA teams are kind of in like the dog days of March. And it's like just going to kind of play through the next couple weeks and get to the playoffs. So now we're at a spot where we're rolling into some good stuff on the college side.
That is 100% not the world I'm living in, Keith. We are living and dying with every game over in Lakers land
You
right
may
now.
be. I don't know that the
We
players are.
we are on edge right now with every single day, and it's a very stressful time, Keith. It's a very stressful time.
Yeah, it's funny. I watch all these games and stuff, and I'm always checking right before games start. Who's playing, who's not playing, and all these things. And I'm like, man, like I remember when you were trying to stack wins in March and in April to go into the playoffs feeling good, and there's still teams that are like, we're gonna sit some guys out. They're like we're good. So
Yeah.
the league is a little weird right now. There's I think I know I tweeted about this. It looks like we're gonna have one of the very few seasons with no 60-win teams this
Yeah.
year. Mark Stein, I believe it was in his Substack, that maybe this came out today, might have been yesterday. I don't know. It all kind of runs together, but he had a thing about is projected to only be 5 50-win teams this year. So I mean, this just tells you it's really anyone's league right now. I don't know how anyone can feel super confident in any team being that's it. That's who I think is going to win the title because I just don't think we're there.
Yeah, and that's, part of that is just the parity that the NBA has been pushing for. What happens is people look at that and they go, "Oh, there's just not any good teams this year." No, it's just there's so much parity. This is what parity looks like. You don't get that dominant team going for 65 wins or something like you would in other seasons. I mean, hell, look at the Western Conference. You have just teams cannibalizing each other constantly. And so that's going to suppress all the win totals and it's going to even things out. And it creates for an interesting playoff race down the stretch for a number of squads depending on where you're looking in the standings. But overall, like maybe it doesn't generate the headlines of, oh my gosh, this team's going to win 65 games or 67 games or whatever it is. But it also means that it can be a bit more exciting. And this is, again, everybody's been asking for parity. This is what parity looks like.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's funny because it's like you said, it's not that there are no good teams. There's just no like dominant teams where it's like,
Yeah.
all right, there it is. And often in a lot of years, there's 2, 3, sometimes even 4 of those teams where it's like, all right, we kind of know. I mean, we're only a few years removed from every year at the beginning of the year. You're kind of like, it's going to be Warriors and Cavs in the finals. And
Right.
every year for 4 years running, it was Warriors and Cavs in the finals. And there's almost nothing anybody could do about it. So but we are definitely in a different spot right now with the NBA, but it should make for a really fun postseason, should make for
Mhm.
some fun matchups and games all the way through because to your point, there's so many teams playing for positioning and seeding and trying to get in. And that's also what the play-in tournament, right, is introduced as. There's
Yes.
now like two races. It's I want to get into the top 6 or I want to get into that 10 group there and those kind of things. So yeah, a lot of fun to come with it. So a lot of really good basketball to come, both NBA and college wise.
Well, so the NBA is looking a bit different than it did years ago, right? In the years past, we're talking about the parity. We're talking about in years past, it was okay. It's the Warriors or Cavs in the finals, and that's what it's going to look like. But we're also seeing an increased focus on load management and players sitting out games. You were just talking about how a lot of teams are resting players and things like that. And this news came out just recently that the NBA may now be looking to tie awards to games played as a way to incentivize, players playing in games. What do you think about that idea? Is that the appropriate response to the concern over healthy players sitting out games due to what's become commonly known as load management?
Don't hate the idea. I think it's not the worst idea in the world to say. You got to pick the right threshold, right? You can't make it
Yeah,
so high that if a guy sprains an ankle and misses a couple weeks, all of a sudden he's out of the running for awards. But you also don't want to make it so low where it's like, all right, well, this changes absolutely nothing. So
right.
there's definitely work that will need to be done on both sides to come to an agreeable number. But by all the reporting that's out there, this is something that the Players Association is also on board with, that they're pushing the league on this and that they had, oh yeah, we've kind of would like to see it go this way too. So I think all around, this is probably a step in the right direction. I don't know that it solves everything because
Mhm.
there are certain players who are like, yeah, my awards days are over, but they're still a
Sure.
draw to watch play. But that's not what they're playing for. So we'll see where that goes. And I do want it to still be reasonable by, like I said, going back to my original point, just what is that threshold that they pick? Because I don't want to see guys get overly punished if they miss games because they had an injury or something like that kept them out a perfectly reasonable amount of games, but it just happened to trip the threshold by a game or two. But you know what? That's going to happen anyway, and people are going to argue and fight about it, and that's just going to be how it goes.
I understand that this is something that the NBA needs to address to some degree. You have to be careful that you don't overcorrect because, I saw our buddy Eric Pincus was talking about this on Twitter just a little bit ago. He mentioned that, hey, if you really wanted to go see Kawhi Leonard play and the NBA institutes rules that forces the Clippers somehow to play him, and then he gets hurt and he's out for 2 months, are you really happy about that? Wouldn't
Yeah.
if you were a Clippers fan, wouldn't you prefer to see Kawhi sit out that game and then have him the remaining 2 months? And that's the decision-making process that the NBA has. But on the flip side, I also understand the argument, look, NBA games, depending on which game you go to, are incredibly expensive. This is not a kind of thing that families can say, well, we're going to do this every other week or something. Oh shoot, this guy's sitting out this game. Well, that's okay. We'll catch him next week. Again, depending on the game you go to. Like I'm looking right now. I don't spend a lot of time looking at ticket prices, but right now, if I want to just get in the door, the lowest ticket price to go see the Orlando Magic at the San Antonio Spurs, well, that's $9. Okay, that's what ESPN has it as, $9 just to get in the door. Okay, right? That's
Sure.
all right.
Yeah.
Hey, we missed our guy. I really wanted to see, I don't know, let's say I really wanted to see Keldon Johnson play. And oh bummer, he's not playing this week. Well, okay, we can go back in a couple weeks. And again, different families have different situations, but that is much more affordable than say I look at Milwaukee at Phoenix. I really want to see Giannis play. It's $116 to get in the door, and then oh shoot, he's not playing. What do you do? Right? Like I understand that in that situation, it feels pretty bad if teams are resting healthy players when you just spent a fortune to go to that game and now you don't get to see your guy.
Yeah, you've got that. You've also got the TV component. For example,
Yes.
we had Memphis and Dallas played last night, and this is not load management stuff, but ESPN game. I believe that was a game that was flexed to ESPN after the Kyrie Irving trade. But Kyrie and Luca both out because they were dealing with injuries. John
Yeah.
Morant out because of his situation. So now you're in a spot where it also impacts TV when we do these kind of things. And I always go to let's say we say you got to play guys 65 games. I'm just picking a number out of thin air. 65 games to be eligible, and that's where
Mhm.
teams are at. So let's say we'll use Kawhi because he's kind of been sort of the poster child of this whole load management era.
Sure.
And the Clippers are all right. So it's the middle of February, right before the All Star break, and they're playing in Orlando, and it's a game that doesn't really matter to them all that much. But boy, we really don't want Kawhi to miss out on an All NBA nod. All right, Kawhi, go out there for 2 minutes, and then we
Right.
take him out. Then what? And people, that's almost worse, right? Like that
Yeah.
feels worse. Now, this happened, real world happened last day of the regular season last year. The Milwaukee Bucks punted their final game, actually punted the number 2 seed to the Boston Celtics on
Mhm.
that last day by not playing anybody except for Drew Holiday because he needed to appear in one more game to trigger his bonus money to make a bunch of stuff. He went out there, they tipped off. I believe Holiday committed a foul like 8 seconds in, and they took him off the floor, and that's what they did. Now, that is the right thing to do by the Milwaukee Bucks and by Drew Holiday and by
Mhm.
everybody involved with making that decision because it would have been unfair for him to just miss a bunch of bonus money because there
Yeah.
might have been a game earlier in the year where they're like, you should probably sit out. And we were still dealing with COVID stuff last season, all that stuff. So now we're in a spot where if this is everybody in the entire league is impacted by this, you're going to see a ton of people start doing things like that, where it's, all right, well, they played, they were in the game, they played, and we took them out, 30 seconds into a game and those kind of things. And that's where it's just, this is a real tricky needle to thread. And the biggest reason why is it's the championships are the most important thing to these teams
Mhm.
and to the vast majority of the players. That's what they care about is, I want to win a title. I want to get here. I want to get there, especially when you've been in the league for a little while and it's like, I've been an all-star, been an all NBA guy. I'm already sitting on a max contract. I want to win games. And it's not that they don't care about the fans. That's where it all gets super sideways and
Yes. Yep.
mispainted. Because it's not true. They do care about the fans and they do want to play. There is just a cost benefit analysis where the team comes and says, hey, we think you sitting out 15, 20 games is better than you being out there every single night and playing, because here's what the science tells us for you as an individual in general, whatever it may be. And that's where it is. And that's where it just gets tougher. And I know people like to yell about, well, Larry and Magic and MJ all played, they
Right.
never sat out. They didn't have all the training stuff and all the things that the players have today. Yeah. And Larry Bird's career was over after about 12 seasons. So where are we at? I know MJ played a lot longer, but he took 2 breaks in there. Even if we cut like I like to pretend the Wizard stuff never happened, and he walked off the court in Utah with the title, and that was it.
Right.
You do run into that stuff where it is these guys didn't have super long careers back then. Careers were shorter, and even if they were playing, they weren't what they were. Like LeBron, the way he plays he would not play 20 years
No.
if he started his career 20 years earlier. It just wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have been a thing. He wouldn't have been able to do it. And that's not that the game was tough or anything. It's just guys were more likely to play through a rolled ankle or play through a sore back or whatever it was, because the idea of taking any games off to rest to get healthy was never a thing. It was either you're injured or, well, what is the old football quote? Are you hurt or you're injured? All right, well, if you're hurt, get up, you can play. You're just going to play hurt. If you're injured, all right, you're out. And that's the difference now. If you're hurt,
Yeah.
that's treated like injured and they're going to let you sit out a game or two.
Well, I mean, you go back and you look and you can see why people would get upset when you see, okay, remember the good old days with, even go back to Shaq. Shaq in 2000 averaged 40 minutes a night and played in 79 games. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way he's appearing in that many games or averaging that many minutes
Yeah.
in today's
Definitely
NBA,
not.
but it's a different NBA and we have a different understanding of injuries and how this all works and everything. But again, I think it's something that the NBA has to really look at too, though, because of, like you said, the broadcast, because of all those fans who pay and go to the games and all of that, and then find out the day of, oh wait, our guy's sitting out. I mean, now like you have to be nervous if you purchase tickets for a game that is the second night of a back-to-back for your guy, you got to think twice about it
Yeah.
because there's a decent chance he's not playing.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, look at the schedule. It's like you said, second night of a back to back, third game in 4 nights. Is it a back to back with travel? Whatever that may be, you probably want to think twice about buying tickets. If it is, I can afford to go once per year, just, be cautious as a consumer of, I don't know if this is the game that I want to put all my money and go to with that. So yeah, it's like I said, I don't know that there's any one thing that fixes this. I really don't. I think this awards voting thing will help and it'll move things in a different direction, but fix it. Yeah, I'm not sure this solves it for everybody, right? You will have certain guys who, all right, I got to get out there because I got to play, but then their team's going to pull shenanigans. What's that going to look like? So yeah, very curious to see where this one all lands.
All right, let's move along and let's talk about John Morant updating his situation. He has entered counseling in Florida, reportedly, and we'll see where this goes from here. But there's still no concrete timetable. The Taylor Jenkins has been essentially dodging the question anytime anybody has tried to pin him down on when is Ja going to be back. And I think that's fair because I don't think the Grizzlies can definitely know either. I don't think this is them trying to withhold information or anything. Obviously, it's a process that they've got to get through. They can't say, oh, he's back on this exact date. But nonetheless, right now, the team is kind of in limbo while they wait for Ja to return. And of course, we've talked about this. They're dealing with other injuries. Steven Adams out. Brandon Clark out for the season, unfortunately, with the Achilles injury. So this is a team that is trying to stay afloat. And they do a pretty good job playing without him. Tyus Jones is a fantastic backup point guard. But still, all eyes are kind of on Ja because, look, the playoffs are getting closer, and we still don't know what this is going to look like for Memphis.
Yeah, and some of the reporting is he may not return this
Yeah.
regular season. It may be the rest of the regular season with this. I don't have a ton to add to that part of it beyond none of the basketball stuff matters here. This is important that he's getting the help that he obviously feels like he needs. Like
Mhm.
that is really, really important. And I think that is great. So I think, let's go in that direction and let's, get yourself set up where you need to be with that. Now I'll say this part of it. I wrote about this for Spot Track because we're getting the question quite a bit of, hey, what happened? What's Ja Morant's contract? What does it look like? Anytime it's this kind of situation, even me, Mr. Salary Cap, feels a little gross making it about salary cap and numbers,
We need to get
right?
that printed on a shirt, Mr.
Yeah,
Salary.
right.
We'll print one up for Summer League in Las
Perfect.
Vegas and have you
No,
wear
I
that
would
around.
never wear it out there. I would be so self-conscious and weird about that. So, but it is it is important, right? It's less important than why he's out and that he gets the
Yeah.
help that he needs. But there is a contractual component to this. So John Morant signed a full 5-year extension with the Memphis Grizzlies, fully guaranteed, no options. It does, as all contracts do, have language around a withhold, whether voluntary or involuntary, of services and all that stuff. So we're nowhere near that even being a thing. There's no reason with that because some people are like, well, if he misses all this time, can't the Grizzlies make it non-guaranteed? I think people are thinking that because like Joel Embiid's deal, Zion Williamson's deal, Jonathan Isaac's deal. This is not that situation. Those are all injury related, missed games due to specific injuries, X, Y, and Z with those. In John Morant's case, full 5-year deal, no options. We're on the deal, no player options, no team options, nothing. If he just goes into next season as it stands right now, and does not make All NBA this year, he will get 5 years, $194.3 million, $33.5 million in first year salary next year. Now, where it gets a little tricky is had he made All NBA this season, he would have qualified for the designated rookie extension because he's got that language in his contract where he would jump a salary tier to the 30% of the cap tier from the 25%. And that would be 233 million over 5 years. And he would get 40.2 million in first year salary. So what's on the table for John Morant? About $39 million contract wise. Now, here's the other thing. He's only played 53 games. It is a loaded guard group. this year for all NBA. These are just some of the players. Stephen Curry, Luka Doncic, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox, Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, James Harden, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Anthony Edwards. That's 10 guys
Yep.
right there without even getting into any more of the complicated cases like, well, is Jaylen Brown a guard or not? Like,
Correct.
where we put him? What about Darius Garland? Those are just kind of the 10 guys that immediately come to mind that are probably going to get some all NBA votes for sure at the position. So in that case, it's not like you're bumping John Morant to put in the 15th best player at the guard position. You're pretty easily going to come up with 6 guys. So that's where it gets super duper tricky for him. I don't think he's going to make all NBA, and I don't think he's going to qualify for the so-called it's not the supermax, because that's what people call the final 35% tier, but the designated rookie language. I don't think he's going to get there, and I think we're going to be in a position where he's going to have missed out on 39 million. Now, if he gets his life right and gets everything figured out and gets all of his endorsements back on track and all those things, no one's going to remember that 39 million down the line, and he'll be fine and it won't matter. But for the next 5 years, you might be looking at John Morant on a slightly different contract than the one we thought he'd be on. If you want to read more detail, I wrote about it over at Spot Track. You can check that out and pull the piece up.
That's a fantastic point, because you're right. I think that, I mean, as much as, the focus should be on Ja getting himself right, the fact of the matter is there's very legitimate alternative options to Ja that you could make an argument for anyway. Now, I think if we could say reasonably, had this not happened and Ja just played the rest of the season and Memphis finishes in the 2 seed or something like that, Ja probably gets the nod. He's probably
100%.
making all NBA, right?
Yep.
But now, I think this probably does remove him from that all NBA award, and then it can change things contractually with some significance. So that's important to note. And again, like you said, the focus should be on John getting right and all. That's the most important thing. But this kind of stuff does matter, and can matter not just for John and his money, but also for the Grizzlies, and in terms of what their salary sheet is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's 7 million next year. That's it's not like it's going to create cap space for the
No.
Grizzlies or anything, but that could be the difference between using the full MLE or not, depending on where you're at. It could be the difference in taking money on in trade or not, and then just year over year, obviously that kind of compounds and adds up as we go. So yeah, big stuff at stake here, and it's like you said. I think Locke would have, all NBA lock for me without a doubt for him. Had everything just kind of continued. But this might be the thing where, hey, this was a sacrifice to get things to a good place.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, moving on. D'Angelo Russell, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, was not looking at his joining the Lakers as a short-term thing, as a, hey, I'm going to take off in free agency this summer. Instead, he wants to stay. He wants to be the Lakers point guard of the future. He's on an expiring contract, pays him $30 million this season. I can tell you from my sourcing, the Lakers, of course, very well aware of his contract situation, and also did not trade for him under the assumption that they were going to part ways with him this summer. Instead, understanding that they would likely do an extension with him at some point. Keith, what are your thoughts there on D'Lo? What do you think the market looks like for him this summer? I know, Lakers fans will say just pay him whatever it takes, but when you start getting into the luxury tax, when you start getting into the repeater, like, how much this is going to be the biggest domino for them, and there are going to be ripple effects that may impact other players on the roster, because they have a lot of guys that are heading into free agency. When we start taking a look down the line, what they agree to here with D'Lo, assuming that everything works out on both sides, it's going to matter for subsequent moves this summer.
Yeah, big time. And we started talking about this all the way back on the Rui Hachimura trade.
Yeah.
That trade signaled cap space may not be the plan then this summer, because that was not Hachimura was not so good that it was a slam dunk, get him, he puts us in the playoffs, but he was also not a low cost flyer where you gave up absolutely nothing to get him and you just move along. So it was kind of in the middle ground there where it's, we'd like to get a little bit more out of this guy. Excuse me. So now with D'Lo, I think that trade acquisition, along with Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt being part of that deal with money into next year, everything points to the Lakers are going to stay as an over the cap team. They're
Yep.
going to do what they can to probably retain all of the four major guys that they added during trade season: Hachimura, Russell, Beasley, and Vanderbilt. Beasley and Vanderbilt are easy ones. Pick up Beasley's team option. That's easy and done. Vanderbilt, you've got him on the roster for next year. His contract is lightly guaranteed, but that'll become fully guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's the biggest slam dunk of all four of these guys, is
That's
that
easy.
they will fully guarantee that one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hachimura, we've talked about it in depth already. So then you get to Russell. Where are we going to go with this? Yeah, it's easy to say pay him whatever he wants, but that's a little hyperbolic, right? Because
Yes.
he's probably not going to be a $7 million player a year. Like that's probably a little bit much, but I tend to think what they're going to try to do. I think first they'll try to get an extension done with him
Yep.
before it even gets to free agency, because that's just what makes the most sense. One, he's not so good that he should be holding out because there's a max offer waiting for me. That's just not who he is as a player. But he also is good enough where if you're the Lakers, like, hey, keeping you right around the same money or a little bump, or he will give you a little bit more next year if the year after that can be a descending contract and can go down a little, then that's slightly different story with that. And I think that's what you would like to do if you're the Lakers. My big thing is, I think whether it be him or Hachimura or anybody else, I think the Lakers are going to look to lock into shorter deals. So either
Yep.
a
2 years.
1 year extension or a 2 year type of deal there. Hachimura might be a little bit different because that's just a weird situation with his rookie free agency. And then we'll get to Austin Reeves here in a second too. But I think with Russell, what you would like to do is you want to kind of tie it to AD and LeBron a little bit, so that you're kind of, if everything goes sideways, you're wiping the deck clean roughly the same time or within a year of that. It's a little harder because AD and LeBron have player options, not next season, but the year after that. So you want to be probably in a spot where, all right, either that season we can basically go, hey, everybody's gone and we're starting fresh, or you say, all right, we've got one more year with Russell under contract. So don't know that I see more than a 3-year deal or as a free agent, or more than a 3-year extension for Russell. But I do think it's possible we see them get him extended at a number that probably makes sense and doesn't feel bad necessarily. I don't. It would feel bad if it was, we start approaching 40 million. That doesn't feel too good to me.
Right.
But if you keep it in the low 30 million range or anything lower than that, that's probably a win, just given where they are. And then I'll just add it here quick because I'm writing about him today. He'll either post later today or tomorrow. Austin Reeves, really weird situation with him because he's Arenas eligible, and that's a whole other complicating factor that if some team really wants to, they can make it really hard on the Lakers to retain him and all these things. So, but we'll do a show where I break it down after I've written the piece, because I want to make sure I write it out, because that will be one way I make sure I get it right, because this is a complicated thing. But we'll do a whole show breaking it down. But just know that's another complicating factor out there as well that the Lakers are going to have to deal with. I don't know that it's going to be a super duper busy summer as far as faces in, faces out, but it's going to be a busy and important summer for the Lakers as far as getting things right with their books and with these contracts for all these guys.
Yeah, some really important decisions to make, and we're going to see, because, like you said, there's going to be ripple effects to each one of these moves. I know initial thought within the Lakers was maybe they do a year or two extension with D'Lo, but that was back at the time of the trade. I'm sure there's going to be some back and forth with him and his agent and all of that as they figure that out. But the first hurdle to clear,
like 5 or 6 games with the Lakers, but he's been great in the games he's played. And in one of those games, he only played like 5 minutes or something, right? He was out pretty early on. So yeah, so that's also there's probably a little bit of a, hey, you kind of need him ready to go for the rest of this run at the postseason here, because you don't know when you're getting LeBron back, and so they've not that they have a ton of leverage, but you've got a little bit. Yes, his market. I don't know that any of the cap space teams are going to be like bending over backwards to get D'Lo, which works in the Lakers' favor, because I don't know that any of those teams are like, oh my God, we have to get him. It's because it's kind of like Kyrie James Harden, Fred VanVleet are the top point guards on the free agent market, and then Russell would be like on the like ladder, or not ladder, but the next tier down of guys.
Yeah.
I'm just starting to work on free agent rankings and all that stuff. So,
Oh boy, before we know it, it's going to be time for all of that.
oh,
Let's jump over to your team, Damon Stoudamire, to Georgia Tech. How big of a deal? You know, a lot of times people don't put much stock into assistant coaches. It's the head coach. Everything's focused on the head coach. But I saw you saying on Twitter this is actually a pretty big deal for Boston. What's going on here?
yeah, so the Celtics have had it's been a little bit of a talent bleed out of the organization with assistant coaches. So Micah Shrewsbury, who was one of Brad Stevens' trusted assistants, is on the college level now. He's coaching Penn State, just got Penn State into the NCAA tournament. That's a pretty big accomplishment because
Mhm.
they haven't historically been a great basketball school at Penn State. So good on him. But then obviously Ime Udoka leaves the organization. Joe Mazzulla is elevated into the head coach spot, but they also lost Will Hardy, who went to the Utah Jazz and has had a really nice year with the Jazz. And that bumped all of that put together, bumped Damon Stoudamire into the top assistant spot for Joe Mazzulla. Mazzulla missed a couple games earlier in the season because he scratched both of his corneas playing pickup with the other
Ooh.
coaches. So I'm guessing they played pickup with Wolverine or something because I don't know how you scratch both corneas.
No,
Or
they
what
played with David Roddy.
yeah, yeah, apparently. I don't know what your pickup rules are that it's like, you're getting your face clawed at that badly, but yeah, you apparently should have been wearing the rec specs like I wore back in the day, or the Horace Grant goggles. But anyway, so Stoudemire took over for those couple of games there. He's the one if you watch Celtics games, you see he's constantly kind of up and in Missoula's ear about different things. Now he's headed off to Georgia Tech. It's very late in the season to be adding anybody, so you're not going to add a coach from
Mhm.
outside the organization likely or anything like that. A lot of people are, hammering on get a veteran coach in there, and it's all the same names. It's it's go get Mike D'Antoni, go get Frank Vogel, go get anybody who's been a head coach before. People are like, put them on the staff, and they can help out. And there's some who are like, fire Missoula and just hire those guys because Celtics haven't been playing well lately. But big loss for the team. He's Marcus Smart's position coach. Every player gets assigned to an assistant coach. That's their main guy. That's who watches film with them one on one. That's who works on their game one on one with them and those kind of things. So these are kind of big things, here that the Celtics are losing. And yes, for those who are wondering, yes, he was with Boston and Houston last night. But he said that's it. That was his last game with the Celtics. And he actually was introduced at Georgia Tech and he'll take over. That is very standard when a guy leaves for a college job because they got to get in there to do recruiting and transfers
Yeah.
and all that other stuff because you gotta hit the ground running. You can't start it in the middle of the summer because all that stuff's done and over with.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's just part of the life cycle in college. It's the rhythm of the season. But yeah, I mean, this can be a big loss. And I think it's tough to, like you said, add in, like, hey, go call up Frank Vogel. Yeah, but it's tough to come in mid-season to a coaching staff like
Yeah.
that. That's not an easy thing to do, particularly when, even just in terms of the team culture. They've got their guys they've depended upon, and then suddenly this other guy's coming in and is going to be saying, that can be a difficult hurdle to overcome as well. So, it is a loss. Obviously, they'll replace that role at some point, probably over the summer, but it is a loss and not one that you see all the time in the NBA. Seeing a coach midseason making that jump to college.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's definitely bench changes coming for the Celtics for sure here over the coming months after their season is
Mhm.
over. They will be adding new assistant coaches because they never replaced Missoula either when he moved up the ladder or rung into the top job. So that was also another thing because I think it feels like it was so long ago that I think we've kind of forgotten that happened like right before training camp. So
Yeah.
it's that's where that went with that one. So yep, there we are.
All right, we've got a few roster moves here to get into. Chris Dunn is going to be with the Utah Jazz for the rest of the season. The Jazz have been kind of hanging around in the Western Conference. They did lose last night, and that knocked them down to the 12 seed, but they were kind of in the mix there. I do still feel like the Jazz are going to just start looking ahead towards the future, and why not give Chris Dunn a shot and see if there's something there. Obviously, he's bounced around the NBA a ton, but I don't think it hurts you if you're Utah to start taking a look at some of these type of guys.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is they needed guards. Colin Sexton's been hurt. They were short
Mhm.
guards after their trade deadline moves, and Chris Dunn's been great for them. 11.6 points per game, 53% shooting, 37% from three, which that is
That's a
phenomenal
surprise.
for
Yeah.
him. Yeah, and a surprise. Yes, 5 rebounds, 5 assists per game, 1.6 steals. He's just been playing great. He really well earned. He earned his way back to the league by really working hard in the G League and playing well, and he's made the most of this. So this is a nice addition. Danny Ainge liked Chris Dunn in the draft process a few years ago when he came into the league. That was the draft where a lot of people were like, "Who the heck is this Jalen Brown guy? Why did they not draft Chris Dunn or
Mhm.
hand up Dragon Bender?" um, so I'll own that one. That's why take any of my draft thoughts with a large grain of salt.
Such a disappointment because a phenomenal name. Like,
I know, right?
what a waste of an all-time great name. The
Sure.
dude's name is Dragon Bender. Like, come
Yeah, right.
on.
I know, just brutal. But yeah, so all he did was bend some rims the wrong way with
Yeah.
bricks, and now he's out of league. But anyway, Chris Dunn, really well earned, really, really well played. And like you said, this is what you do if you're the Jazz. You've got a lot of
Mhm.
open roster spots. Start churning through the bottom of the roster and just bringing some guys in, and maybe like Dunn, they'll pop and stick. And anytime anybody's like, yeah, he's a little old, Spencer Dinwiddie popped with the Nets and became a really good player.
Yep.
Still is a really good player. Several years into his career, Joe Harris as well. So the Jazz are kind of in that position now where that's what they're doing.
And the Cavs have signed Sam Merrill to a multi-year deal. Now, I would imagine I haven't seen anything official on this, but I would imagine there's some non-guaranteed years that are in this. Have you seen anything on that?
I haven't, but one of the Cavs reporters, I can't remember who it was, and I apologize, had said, sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting my throat clear.
You're just very excited about Sam Merrill.
About Sam Merrill, yeah, I know. I'm a big Sam Merrill fan. I do like Sam Merrill, but one of the Cavs reporters tweeted out that it's expected to look like what they did with Lamar Stevens and Dean Wade, which was give them extra years. Um, in exchange, probably get a little bit of bump in salary this year. Tack on a couple years is probably non-guarantees, maybe partial guarantees for next year, maybe into the year after that, and that'll be where it goes. That's kind of how you get these guys. And again, another guy hung around the fringes of the NBA, worked hard in the G League, came up, could give the Cavs a little bit of shooting if he gets into games. I don't really expect it, but this to me also signals probably the end of Dylan Windler's tenure in
Mhm.
Cleveland. He just was never able to get healthy, former first round pick. Has battled injuries his entire career. So now you've kind of got your designated shooter in his place in Merrill.
All right, then we jump over to the Pistons. Eugene Omoruyi has a second 10-day contract with Detroit. We know Detroit's going to be hoping for lottery luck and all of that, but it's good to see teams continuing to, like we've said with these last few, add guys in, take a look at players because you never know who you're going to find that's going to pop, and he's earned a second day 10-day contract, so he's going to get an extended look. Remember, at the end of this contract, the Pistons are going to have to make a decision. Do you keep him or do you then set him free because they can't give him a third 10-day contract?
Correct. Yeah. There were a couple of those over the last couple of years. Those are all COVID related. Those were
Yeah.
something completely different. Those were thankfully not in that world anymore as far as NBA contracts go. So, yeah, Omar Rui, my guess is will probably sign. With the Pistons after this year. The Pistons still have their prorated room exception. So if they wanted to give him a little bit of a bump and then get him for a couple seasons, they could go that way, or they could do a 2-year minimum deal, whatever they want to do with him. But my guess is you'll see him stick around. He's again, kind of played well. There looks like they're going to shut Bojan Bogdanovic down for the year. Alec Burks is already kind of in and out of the lineup. Hamidou Diallo's been out of the lineup. Isaiah Stewart is out likely for the rest of the year. So the guy like Omarui comes in, plays it with energy, plays really hard. He's somebody I think the Pistons will keep around.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense for them to hang on to him. Last thing we've got today, Scoot Henderson has been shut down, and not due to injury or anything like that. Just the sense is, look, why have him keep playing games in the G League and all that when kind of know what's going to happen here. He's going to be probably the second or third pick in the draft. And now it's just a matter of staying healthy, continuing his workouts, and preparing for draft day in June.
Yeah, 25 G League games for Scoot Henderson this year between regular season and the Cup. 17.6 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 1.2 steals, shot 44% from the field, 32% from three, but that was always kind of the question with him a little bit coming in. So looked pretty good. Second year in a row in the G League for him too. If we remember, he was one of the kids who came there a year early, was part of the G League Ignite team a year ago. Now, starter all the way through. It looks like the Ignite are not going to qualify for the G League playoffs. So basically, this is my guess is this was Henderson's reps and the G League together saying, let's call it a year and let's
Yeah.
just, we've kind of done everything we needed to do. We had those 2 high profile games with against Victor Wembanyama in Las Vegas where they went head to head and all that stuff. So, Scoot Henderson, good player. It reminds me a lot of Steve Francis. That's who I see when I watch him play. But probably better to be quite honest. But yeah, he's here we go. He's likely to be the second pick in the draft unless we get something out of the Thompson twins or Brandon Miller as a huge tournament run. On the NCAA tournament, if I can for a minute, you can find on my Twitter, I wrote an NBA fans viewing guide to the NCAA tournament, and wrote is a very really using poor descriptor there because really what it is it's a list of all the NBA prospects that have appeared on a top 100 draft board, whether that be ESPN, The Athletic, or somewhere. And then I use ESPN's up-to-date rankings. Over their collegiate careers are all listed, and it just tells you who they're playing, when they're playing, what their jersey number is, what time their game is at, all that stuff. So if you're an NBA fan like the two of us are, and it's like, hey, I want to tune in to watch these guys. I want to watch this Brandon Miller kid play. I want to see what he looks like. You can go to my Twitter. You can find it there. Go to the. It's just a Google Doc, so you pull it up on your phone or computer or wherever, and look, and it'll give you everything you need to know about where all these prospects are playing here over the next couple weeks as the tournament gets kicked off.
All a very, very valuable resource for NBA fans that are going to be watching the March Madness tournament. Keith, that I don't even want to ask like how long that took you to put together because that sounds
not that long
exhausting.
actually.
Okay,
Thankfully, because I had the draft guy. So what I do is every time they come out with a new class of draft players, I go and I add them all into my pretty big player database at this point. And then I just kind of continually kind of move them around and update them as I can. I check in, and then when the tournament rolled around, I just started pulling them all over, and I started working on it last week. And I was kind of probably college basketball man for a little bit because I was like, all right, what's the bubble looking like? Is this team going to be in? Are they going to be out?
Right.
And I was sorting guys that way and those kind of things. Like, for example, I took all of the UNC players off because they didn't make the NCAA tournament. And then I don't like this at all, but unfortunately, this is where we're headed with a lot of this stuff. They're not even playing in the NIT. They decided not to go at all to the NIT either. They were like, nah, there's no reason for us.
No thanks.
It's not for us. And my guess is a lot of that was probably player driven. They've got some NBA level guys that were probably like, nah, I don't really want to play in a thing that's not the NCAA tournament. That's a team that was in the NCAA final a year ago.
Wow.
So, just kind of gives you a sense of how crazy college basketball is right now. I think there's a ton of parity in the NBA. I've watched and read and looked at a lot of these expert picks on these brackets and all this stuff, and it is wildly all over the place with the teams that are being picked to go to the Final Four and win the whole thing and everything. And it is bonkers, which should make for a really, really fun tournament. And then if I can, one last thing, just because I think it'll have interest to our audience here. I wrote about James Harden and the Philadelphia 76ers at the end of last week, and I've tweeted it a couple times since, and you can check it out. We've talked on the show about all the noise and rumors and all that buzz that he might go back to Houston. But I wrote about why contractually the over 38 rule makes that a lot more likely than just I'd be giving up the 5th year and all this stuff with the Sixers to go there. 5th year is not super likely coming for James Harden with the Sixers. So There's a lot of stuff in there if you want to read on why that over 38 rule is a great equalizer. It's probably only really about $8.5 million difference between what Houston can offer him and what Philly can offer him. And I don't think if he wants to be in Houston, $8.5 million is going to make or break his decision there.
It's going to be one of the big storylines of the season, of the summer, to keep an eye on. Does James Harden actually go back to Houston? And what do they do if he does? Do they start cashing in young players and try to add win now pieces? And this summer is going to be nuts. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications as well, and of course, go follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya, and stay safe.